The email wasn't even meant for me. It was a forwarded receipt, auto-populated to the wrong address. And it had a woman's name on it I'd never heard before, along with my father's credit card number, a hotel booking, and the words, "Can't wait to see you and the kids." That word, kids, hit different when you're an only child. My hands went completely numb. Not cold, not tingly. Numb, like my body just quietly decided to check out before my brain could catch up. And here's the thing nobody tells you about discovering your father's secret life. You don't explode. You just sit there, holding your phone, watching the world continue being completely normal while yours silently detonates. So let me back up. My dad, let's call him Richard, because that is his name and he has fully forfeited the right to a nickname, was, by every external measure, a good dad. Like, embarrassingly good. The kind of dad that other kids' moms would reference at school pickups. Your father came to every single game. You're so lucky. And yeah, he did. He was at every volleyball game, every school play, every graduation ceremony with a bouquet of sunflowers because he knew I was allergic to lilies. He coached my soccer team when I was 9, even though he knew nothing about soccer. He learned the offsides rule from a YouTube tutorial the night before. I know this because I found the browser history once and thought it was the funniest thing I'd ever seen. We had a routine. Every Sunday, him and me, 8 a.m., the diner on 5th with the sticky laminated menus and the coffee that tasted like ambition and regret. He always ordered the same thing: veggie scramble, no toast, black coffee. And he always made fun of me for getting the chocolate chip pancakes because, and I quote, "You're not 12 anymore, Maya." I was 23 at the time. I got the chocolate chip pancakes every single time out of spite. It was our thing. But here's what I didn't register back then: the small stuff. The stuff that passed me just filed under quirky dad behavior and moved on. Like how his phone was always face down. Always. Every single surface, tables, car dashboards, the bathroom counter, face down. I thought it was a mindfulness thing. He'd read that book about being present and I thought, how sweet, dad's growing. He was face down all right. Or how he'd occasionally disappear for work conferences that left no paper trail. No hotel points on the family account. No corporate card charges my mom could see. I know this now because my mom, bless her, mentioned once that she thought it was strange his work never reimbursed him. He told her the company had a new expense system. She believed him. She wanted to believe him, you know? There's a difference. And then there were the Christmas trips. Every other year, Richard would volunteer to do the vendor appreciation event his company threw in December, a whole weekend in the city, wining and dining clients. Very important, couldn't miss it, so sorry. My mom and I would do Christmas Eve without him, and he'd be back by the 26th with a duty-free bag of chocolate and a look on his face I now recognize as profound, practiced relief. But the email. God, the email. It was November 14th, 11:47 p.m. I was lying in bed at my apartment, half asleep, doom scrolling. My dad had forwarded me a gym membership deal earlier that day. Very unsolicited. And his email was still open in my recent contacts. So when she went to forward him the hotel confirmation, her phone autofilled and sent it to me instead. Her name was Diane. The hotel was the Hilton Garden in downtown. Check-in December 23rd, 2 queen beds. The kids' note in the message thread was followed by 3 heart emojis. 3. I sat up in bed and read it 4 times. Then 5. Then I screenshotted it, put my phone down, picked it up, read it again. My brain kept trying to find the alternative explanation. Maybe it's a different Richard Chun. Maybe this is spam. Maybe. No, his credit card number was right there. The last 4 digits I knew by heart because I'd been added as an emergency contact on his account since college. I went to the bathroom, looked at myself in the mirror, and genuinely could not recognize my own face for a second. That sounds dramatic. It was dramatic. It was also completely real. I didn't cry. Not yet. I went back to bed and lay there completely still until 4 a.m., staring at the ceiling, running the math of my entire childhood. The next morning, I called my best friend Jess, told her what I found, and she said, "And I will love her forever for this. Okay, don't do anything yet. Let me think." Jess is the reason this story has a part 3. But before we get there, I need to tell you about the Sunday after, because I made the catastrophic mistake of going to our regular breakfast. I don't know why I went. Maybe I wanted to look at him. Maybe I needed to confirm he was still the same person. Maybe I'm a little bit of a masochist. Probably all three. He was already at the table when I got there. Veggie scramble, no toast, black coffee. Reading something on his phone. Face down on the table the second he saw me. Obviously. And he smiled that wide Richard chin smile and said, "There she is." I sat down, ordered the chocolate chip pancakes, and proceeded to have a completely normal breakfast with a man who had been lying to my mother, to both of us, for what I now suspected was years. At one point he complained about how busy work was. He said December was always brutal. He said he was sorry he wouldn't be around for Christmas Eve again this year. I smiled and said, "It's okay, Dad." Inside I was somewhere between a controlled demolition and a quiet house fire. "You're not 12 anymore, Maya," he said, nodding at my pancakes. "I know," I said, and for the first time, he had no idea what I meant. Jess, God bless her chaotic little soul, had a connection I did not. Her older brother Marcus had gone to college with a guy, some finance bro named Pete, who had gone on a fishing trip with my dad 3 summers ago. Pete was the kind of guy who talked too much when he drank, and apparently he had been talking for years. Jess called me back 48 hours after I told her about the email. She'd been doing field work, essentially. "Okay," she said. "Sit down." I was already sitting. I sat further down. Diane wasn't just a woman my dad was seeing. Diane was. I need you to really absorb this. The woman my father had been with since before he married my mother. They had been on and off throughout his entire marriage. And then, about 9 years ago, it became very on. Diane had 2 kids, a boy 11, a girl 8, both of them with my father's last name. My father had another family for 9 years. A whole second household, 40 minutes away from ours. Different suburb, same zip code. I'm not even going to try to describe what that felt like in a way that does it justice. I'll just say this. I went back through every memory of my childhood and adolescence and held each one up to a light, like a counterfeit bill detector. And the thing that broke me wasn't the lies themselves. It was how good the lies were. How seamless. How warm. How he'd shown up to every single thing for me and somehow also shown up for them. There was this one memory specifically. My 16th birthday. He took me to a nicer restaurant. Just the 2 of us. Mom was visiting her sister. And I remember feeling so special. Like he'd carved out this whole evening just for me. He gave me a card that said, "You are my greatest adventure." I still have that card. I found out from Jess that Diane's son, my half-brother, apparently, turned 7 that same weekend. My dad had taken him to his first baseball game the day before my birthday dinner. I threw up. I'm not being hyperbolic. I genuinely got sick. And then I sat on my bathroom floor for 45 minutes, ugly crying into a towel I'd had since college, the kind of crying where you stop making sound and just vibrate. My mascara was all the way down to my chin. I looked like a horror movie poster. Would have been more cinematic if I was wearing something dramatic. I was in an oversized hoodie and mismatched socks. Grief has no aesthetic. When I finally stopped, I called Jess back and said, "I want to destroy him." Jess said, "I know. I've already started a Google Doc." Now here's where it gets interesting, because it wasn't Jess who pushed me toward the actual plan. It was my Aunt Carol. Carol is my dad's younger sister. She's 71, still does her own taxes, grows her own tomatoes, and does not suffer fools. She's also, it turns out, the one person in Richard's orbit who had been suspicious for years. She called me out of nowhere, completely separately from the Jess situation. 2 days after I found the email, she said she'd been holding on to something, and God forgive her, she couldn't hold it anymore. You could hear how much it cost her to make that call. She loved her brother. She still does. In the way you can love someone and also see them with terrible clarity. Her voice was careful, like she was placing every word on thin ice. She told me she'd met Diane once. 6 years ago. She didn't know what she was seeing at the time. Thought Diane was a work colleague. The kids were colleagues. Kids. But something had felt wrong enough that she'd filed it away. And then over the years, small things accumulated. Richard declining family Christmases with excuses that didn't add up. Being strangely defensive whenever money was mentioned. A second cell phone she'd spotted in his bag once, which he explained away so smoothly she'd almost convinced herself she imagined it. "I should have told someone sooner," Carol said. "I know that. Why didn't you?" I asked. Silence. Long silence. "Because I didn't want to blow up your life," she said. And then I realized, it's not my choice to make. It's yours. That was the moment I stopped being sad and started being strategic. Because here's the other thing Carol told me, almost as an afterthought. Diane doesn't know about you guys either, Maya. He's been lying to her too. And just like that, I stopped seeing Diane as the villain of this story. The plan came to me while I was grocery shopping 2 days later. I was standing in the holiday display at Target, surrounded by Christmas gifts, and I saw them. The DNA ancestry kits. On sale, $49.99 each. Buy 4, get 1 free. I nearly dropped my basket. What if everyone, both families, got a DNA kit for Christmas? And what if they all activated them at the same time? And what if I set the accounts to share matches publicly within the family group? The math worked out beautifully. My mom, me, Carol, and then, anonymously, mailed with forged return addresses, Diane and her 2 children. When they activated their kits and the family matching synced up, the app would do all the talking. No confrontation needed from me. The algorithm would simply introduce everyone. I stood in Target for 20 minutes doing the logistics in my head. Then I bought 6 kits, a box of candy canes, and a bottle of wine for myself because I deserved it. Let me be clear about something. I did not go into Christmas dinner shaking. I went in prepared. I'd spent 3 weeks doing the groundwork. I'd anonymously mailed Diane's family their kits with a gift note that said, "A gift from a friend. Discover your roots this holiday season." Very Hallmark. Very sinister. I'd set up the family sharing group on the app using my mom's and Carol's accounts. Carol was fully in on it by now and had the energy of someone who had been waiting for this moment for a decade. I'd made sure everyone's kits were activated by December 23rd. The match notifications would sync the moment the algorithm connected the profiles, which, based on the processing timeline, would happen sometime on Christmas Day. So I walked into my parents' house at 4 p.m. on December 25th wearing the green velvet dress my dad had once called a bit much, don't you think? With my hair down and my good earrings in. Richard was in the kitchen doing his thing. He always cooked Christmas dinner, another thing I used to think was endearing, making his signature pot roast that took 4 hours and smelled incredible. My mom was setting the table. Carol was in the living room, and when she saw me, she raised one eyebrow exactly 1 millimeter. That was our signal. We were ready. Dinner was, look, it was almost funny how normal it was. My dad was on. Charming, funny, doing his best Richard Chin impression. Asking about my job, complaining about traffic, making mom laugh. And I sat there eating pot roast that was genuinely delicious and thought, he has absolutely no idea. That's the thing about people who've been lying successfully for a long time. They stop being scared. The vigilance goes away. You get comfortable. Carol, you look tired, he said at one point. I'm fine, Carol said, and took a long sip of wine. Just thinking about family. I nearly choked on my potato. The tension was doing this slow, pressurized build under the surface. All the things only Carol and I knew, contained behind our completely normal faces. At one point, my dad told a long story about a work situation, and I watched him construct a lie in real time, just adding texture and detail to something that almost certainly wasn't true, completely out of habit. Like he'd been doing it so long it was just how he talked. I always say, he announced, setting down his fork with the authority of a man who believed in himself. You can't control what happens to you. You can only control your response. First time. Full arrogance. He loved this phrase. I'd heard it 100 times growing up. It was his philosophy, his brand, his whole thing. You can't control what happens to you, Maya. You can only control your response. He'd said it after my first breakup. After I didn't get the job I wanted at 22. After literally every setback in my life. Delivered with the calm confidence of a man who believed he had mastered the art of control. What he did not know was that, across town, Diane had opened her Ancestry app at some point during Christmas morning. My phone buzzed at 6:47 p.m. I felt it in my pocket during dessert. One small vibration. I didn't look at it. I didn't need to. Carol's phone was on the table next to her wine glass. She'd been refreshing the app under the guise of showing mom some photos, and I watched her face. She went very, very still. Then she looked up at me with an expression that said, "It's happening." What happened next took about 4 minutes in real time and will take me significantly longer to explain because time moved differently. My mom, who had been given her kit as an early Christmas gift, no context, just fun ancestry thing mom, had been excited about it all week. She pulled out her phone to show Dad the app. "Richard, look, I'm apparently 14% Scandinavian. Isn't that something?" And my dad looked at the screen, and the color left his face. Because on my mom's shared family matches, right there at the top, flagged as close family/possible half-sibling, very high confidence, were two profiles. A boy, a girl, ages estimated at 11 and 8. With his DNA, he blinked. Once, twice, looked up, looked back down. "What is that?" my mom said. Not a question, just sounds coming out. "It's probably a glitch," he said. Immediately, automatically. The lie was already there before the sentence was finished. You could see it, like a reflex. These apps make mistakes all the time, the algorithms aren't. "Richard," Carol's voice, flat as a table. He looked at her. "Don't," she said. And here's the part that will live in my head forever. The part where he almost had me. He looked at my mom with this expression, genuinely pained, genuinely scared. And for just a second I thought, oh, he actually loves her. This is going to break him, and he actually loves her. There was a flicker of something real. And then he said, "Diane isn't. It's not what it looks like. Those kids aren't. I can explain this." And in the same breath, without pausing, pivoted directly to, "Maya, did you have something to do with this?" Not a question, an accusation, looking at me like I was the one who'd done something wrong. And there it was, the pivot, from scared husband to offended patriarch in under 4 seconds. "You can't control what happens to you, Dad," I said. "You can only control your response." The table went silent. My mom started crying quietly. Carol reached over and held her hand without breaking eye contact with Richard. And my dad, this man who had juggled 2 entire families for the better part of a decade, who had been the most charming person in every room he'd ever entered, who had a separate phone and a separate life and the audacity to call my dress a bit much, sat in his own kitchen, in front of his pot roast and Christmas candles, and completely fell apart. The meltdown wasn't loud. That's what surprised me. I'd expected anger, explosions, table-flipping Richard energy. Instead, he started talking. Fast, disorganized, circular. Explaining, minimizing, bargaining. "It started before you and I were serious." To my mom, "Diane knows what this is." Which, for the record, she did not. "I never let it affect this family." Which was so spectacularly untrue it almost looped back around to impressive. At one point he said, "I have been carrying this alone for years. You have no idea the pressure." Carol said, "Richard, stop talking." He stopped. She looked at him with this expression, tired, sad, deeply unsurprised, and said, "You're not a victim of your own secret. You're just the last one to find out it's over." December 25th, 7:03 p.m. The candles were still burning. The pot roast was still warm. My mom hadn't let go of Carol's hand. My phone had 17 missed calls from my dad by December 26th, 17. I know because I screenshotted it and sent it to Jess with the caption, "Record?" The texts were something else. They ranged from genuinely heartbroken, "Maya, please, I need to talk to you. I'm your father," to completely unhinged, "Do you understand what you've done to this family?" to my personal favorite, "I hope you're proud of yourself." Which, yeah, actually, a little bit, Dad. He tried Carol next. She let it go to voicemail, listened to the message, and called me to read it out loud. And we had our first genuine laugh together in weeks. Not because it was funny, exactly, but because it was so quintessentially Richard, even in his worst moment, still trying to manage the narrative, still spinning. He posted a vague quote on Facebook about betrayal from those closest to you, which was a genuinely bold move for a man in his situation. I am told 3 of his friends texted him privately to ask if he was okay. 2 of them, when they found out the actual story, went silent and have not resurfaced. Here's the part one didn't see coming, Diane. She reached out to me 6 days after Christmas. A text from an unknown number. "I think we should talk. This is Diane. I know you have no reason to, but I'd really appreciate it." I stared at that message for a long time. Here's the thing about Diane that I had to slowly, uncomfortably come to terms with. She was also a victim, a different kind, with a different texture, but she believed she was in a long-term relationship with a man who was separated but complicated with his first family. She didn't know my parents were still fully married. She didn't know about the Sunday breakfasts or the Christmas dinners or the birthday card that said "You are my greatest adventure." She'd built a life around a version of my father that did not exist either. We met for coffee on January 4th, a little place neither of us had been before, neutral territory. She was quieter than I expected. She looked like someone who'd been crying for a week and had run out of tears, but kept going anyway. Her kids, my half-siblings, I guess, in some biological technicality that I'm still working out how to feel about, were with her mother. We didn't talk for very long. There wasn't much to say that the DNA app hadn't already said. But before we left, she looked at me and said, "I'm sorry, for whatever it's worth." "You didn't do anything," I said. "I know," she said. "I'm sorry anyway. I don't know what to do with Diane yet. I don't know if she and I become something, or nothing, or something in between. I don't know about the kids. I have a half-brother who's 11 and apparently loves baseball and has never heard my name. That one sits in my chest like a stone I haven't learned to put down yet. My mom filed for divorce in February. She's staying with Carol for now, which is both sad and, I say this with love, low-key the best thing that's happened to Carol in years. They drink wine and watch reality TV, and my mom is slowly, messily rebuilding. She has a therapist. She cried in my car last month and then made me stop at Chick-fil-A on the way home and got a milkshake and said, "Okay, better." She's not okay, but she's moving. Me? I went back to the diner on 5th about 3 weeks ago. Solo. I don't know why. Maybe I wanted to see if it still looked the same. It did. Sticky laminated menus. Coffee that tastes like ambition and regret. The Sunday morning crowd doing their Sunday morning thing. I ordered the chocolate chip pancakes. I'm not 12 anymore. I know that. But I got them anyway, because they're good, and because some things should belong to me alone now. I'm not healed. I want to be clear about that, because this isn't one of those stories that ends with a bow. I still catch myself wanting to call him sometimes. Not the Richard who had the second family, but the Richard who learned the offsides rule from YouTube the night before my soccer game. That guy. I miss that guy. I think I'll probably miss him for a long time. But here's what I've got. My mom, who I'm closer to now than I've been since I was little. Carol, who I text approximately 40 times a week. Jess, who has demanded full story credit if this ever becomes a podcast. And myself, messy, petty, chocolate chip pancake ordering, green velvet dress wearing me, who sat across a Christmas table from a man who underestimated her and let a DNA algorithm say everything that needed to be said. He always told me, you can't control what happens to you. You can only control your response. Turns out, with enough planning, you can do both.